Welcome to the first installment of our two-part Superintendent series. Welcome to Data Distilled. I'm your host, Chris Teddy. We have two wonderful gentlemen joining me remote. So this is, it's been a while since we didn't have a face-to-face interview going on. We have Justin Goodlaxson, our Director of Field Operations down in our South Central region, and Noah Westlake, our General Superintendent in our East region, both who have a long history of data center and mission-critical work within J.E. Dunn. So I'm excited to have them here to pick their brain, get their perspective of what the industry is doing, where we are going as a company and as a construction industry. So I'm going to hand it off and ask Justin to introduce himself first, and then we'll pass it on to Noah. So, Justin, thanks for joining, bud.
Yeah, nice to be on. I know that I tricked Noah to come play with us, but I think this will be a good time. So Justin Goodlaxson worked mostly in the Midwest region, traveled all over the United States, starting about 10 years ago, did data centers, settled down here in the South Central region, but been with the company for 23 years. So
Noah, how about you, bud?
Yeah, Noah Westlake. Appreciate the invitation. 17 years with J.E. Dunn. I've done 15 on data centers. Fun fact, I was a Midwest employee for 15 of those years. And in 15 years, I think I've spent 2 in Kansas City as an actual true Midwest employee. I think I'm up to 10 different states for J.E. Dunn building data centers. And I think I've gone back and forth between the coasts 3 times now. So I think I've built data centers from coast to coast and everywhere in between.
That is a laundry list of places you've been. And I know, Justin, you probably are matching that same thing. Fun little fact, Noah and I, that was the first data center I was on. I was with Noah Westlake and another South Central employee, Justin, Frank Jakovich out in Santa Clara. So that was the first data center I did back in 2011, I think is when we started that. And it was a small upgrade to a data center in Santa Clara. So appreciate everything you two have done for J.E. Dunn, and I'm excited for the conversation here. I would like to kind of reach back. You talked about how many years you've been doing this, Noah, but I'm going to start with Justin on what got you into the construction industry and then what transitioned you into kind of the data center world.
Construction industry, grew up in Iowa, so small town Iowa wasn't a whole lot to do. Did the normal summer sports, baseball, and we had a baseball coach that all he did was hit home runs for practice. So there was a whole group of us that got bored of playing baseball, and I think it was 7th grade, because we didn't actually practice or do anything, and we just got our butts beat. So instead, I went and started shingling with one of the teachers that one of my teachers and his son was one of my buddies, and so I started shingling in the summer, and then that's what started it. When I didn't have any idea, when I was ready to go to school, I applied for all 3 state schools and didn't really know, right? My mom wanted me to be a mortician, and I knew I didn't want to be a mortician because that didn't sound like very much fun. And my guidance counselor handed me this sheet that said, "Hey, you should be in construction." And it said this stupid little purple pamphlet that said, "Go to UNI and be a construction management." So I did. So that's what I went and did. Was in Kansas City for a couple years, and then they shipped me off to Iowa. Kind of like Noah, I was part of the Iowa office, but didn't do very many Iowa jobs. I did jobs outside of Iowa, and then they were running out of work, and Mr. Orpin said, "If you're willing to travel, I got a deal for you." So I got shipped to Lenore, North Carolina, and that was my first data center.
Is that where you two met for the first time?
That is where we first met, but Justin, being such a social butterfly, actually called me on my drive to Lenore, North Carolina, and kept me company on day 1 for about an hour, and we had never met each other. On day 2, called me, and we kept me company for about another hour on my drive, and we've been best friends ever since.
I did. Apparently, he claims I lied to him about how long it was to get to some city outside of Nashville, but I think it's just Noah's bad math.
Or bad memory, one of the two. We're getting old.
Yeah.
You're not getting old. You're getting wiser. Noah, how about you?
Slightly different path, a little wonky, if you will. I actually started out college in the aviation program. I was flying planes, got to my sophomore year of college. My dad, being an airline pilot, informed me that the aviation market was taking a dunk, and it'd probably be 10 years before they were hiring pilots again. And he suggested possibly getting a degree in something other than aviation as a backup plan. Actually, another J. Dunn employee and I were on the same roller hockey team in college, played college hockey, and he knew that I was a flat work laborer in the summer, pouring concrete for a large residential outfit in Missouri and St. Louis. Said, hey, you should look into construction management. It's an easy degree. So next semester, I took a couple construction management classes, fell in love with the notion of building things, especially being a flat work laborer. Started construction, followed a girl to Kansas City, got an internship with J. Dunn. On my hire with J. Dunn, I did a few jobs here and there in Kansas City. I think it was 22 in 2 years, 22 different projects, because I hired on right before the recession. When the recession was kind of lifting up a little bit, I took my turn out of town. Was told it was supposed to be a month. That month quickly turned into 3 to close out that project in Santa Clara. I believe, as the story was told to me, the client really liked me, and I got asked to go back out of town, and I'd get the opportunity to run my own project. And heck at 22, who can turn down getting to run their own data center project out in Santa Clara? So the rest is history.
That was not a lie, by the way. The client did love you, and we took it from Santa Clara up to Roseville, if you remember that. And that's when you and I would do road trips, and it was years later that I found out you didn't realize you could have stayed in Roseville, because you were driving back from Roseville, California, down to Santa Clara, California every night after work. And I was like, oh my goodness, just get a hotel and stay there.
That was 3 hours in sitting on the 101 in traffic every night.
Unreal.
I was cussing you every night. I did that.
I apologize. Are you still flying?
I am not.
When's the last time you got on a plane and flew?
College.
Wow. That is 2 extremely different paths kind of converge into the same kind of job now. Switching gears on the history of how you got into construction, what is your purview, or what are your likes or dislikes and observations from what I'd call commercial construction or general construction to what you're seeing in the data center world now, since both of you have had both experiences? What do you see the differences are, and or how would you describe that to somebody that may not know what building a data center is like?
I think personally, getting to start out on a much smaller data center, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think that first renovation suite we did was only like 3 megawatts, which is very small in comparison to what we do now. But being such a small data center addition, getting to get hands-on, having the time to actually talk to all the MEP trades is what got me super interested in what is a data center, because let's be honest, they're mostly MEP trades, very MEP centric. And it being small enough, I actually got to jump in with them on a lot of things and learn all the MEP ins and outs. And I think that's what got me super interested in data centers. And I think that was the major difference. I think starting out in the hospital division, obviously there's a lot of MEP. There's your med gas and all your nuke med equipment and all that cool stuff too. But these are just mostly MEP systems, and they're big MEP systems, and they're complex. And then you add in the cool layers of commissioning, just that competitive nature. I think I like to win. And so, when you go up against the time clocks of these data centers, as well as the challenges that commissioning offer and the puzzle that they are, it's just fun to put that puzzle together.
I would agree with that. I think the difference is the buildings are simple to build. There's nothing flashy about a big gray box with very little foundations or even hardly any architectural details. So if you're on a commercial job, there's a lot of planning and coordination that you would see in regards to the pretty stuff, let's say. And in a data center world, it's how fast can you build this box? And then it goes to the puzzle piece. You have way more turnovers, and the turnovers don't always make sense to those people coming out of commercial construction. There's always turnovers that you have, right? There's, pressure tests and stairs. There's, some sort of something you have to turn over for a hospital. And there's always an IDF room and electrical room that are critical in a commercial building. But in data center world, there's always some weird turnover that you got to do early, and it's going to drive something that you would never do first, that you're going to have to go build that first and then work your way around it. And then there seems to be almost like a secret code you have to crack of there's some super special spreadsheet that you may or may not have access to. And just the puzzle of it and the planning of it is that much more critical because of the speed. That I think that's the main difference between commercial and data centers.
I also think one of the big discerning factors is its functionality over aesthetics. I think on data center buildings, they want their buildings functional, up and operational, and we can fall back to the aesthetic portion. Whereas on your normal commercial projects, when they turn over, they want to make sure that the aesthetics are perfect before turnover.
Absolutely, totally agree with that, Noah. To I guess that point you brought up earlier of that first data center being 3 megawatts, and now we're seeing a large increase to what the average size of a data center is now. Those small ones and retrofits, come into play, and they're just as critical. But as you have developed and grown within the construction industry, how has the role of a superintendent changed from when you first started doing data centers to now?
That's a good question.
What I think has changed, what I've seen and maybe even experienced from, the first Centurion job. I'm going to talk about Lenore a little bit. It was Tom Arrington, Noah, myself, and and Aaron Cave, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple people, but there weren't very many of us for a $150 million job, because that's how we thought about it. Coming out of the commercial world, we think about it in millions of dollars, not in megawatts. And so we staffed it accordingly on how we would think it would be based on the structure of the building. And we worked our tails off. And then we went to IDI, which is my second data center, and we had almost double the staff. But we changed how we were staffing it because we weren't looking at the structure. And then from there, back to your question of how has our job changed, moving to Meta, TTX, some of those bigger jobs, it turned into, I had to know more about the budget and how do we get there, and less about the construction, because there was people that were doing the construction piece. So I felt like, I'm going to use Setley, for example. Setley and I had to be hand in hand, knowing where the budget, the schedule, we had to be more well-rounded than maybe I had been prepared for doing commercial buildings. And again, I was barely a soup two when I first went to Lenore, so I learned anyway. But the bigger the job, the less you're into the details of the actual construction, and the more you're blending with your PX and you're blending with your PMs. I don't know if that really answered the question, but I feel like we become more of a mayor of a town on these projects than we do truly a superintendent that's building something.
No, I
think also on a more basic level, I think if you break it into two buckets, it's what new tools did we have to put in our toolbox? And what new tools do we need to buy? And I think as a superintendent, you had to learn less of we're all builders. I think we all come with the knowledge of the sticks and bricks, but a lot of us had to add the parts and smarts to our toolbox. And then as a company, what new tools did we buy? I think, we really invested and grew our IPS group, getting a lot more of these specialized MEP personnel on board. But not only that, we started investing in getting MEP superintendents just to give us that extra leg up, to have those subject matter experts out there throughout construction, doing QA/QC on electrical equipment, mechanical equipment. So having those assets, as you move up the ranks, or being one of those assets and having to learn that, now we're hiring those people. As Justin said, our roles as supervisors has also changed, because now it's how do you leverage those new toys you have, or new tools you have in your toolboxes. How do you leverage those, and then also trying to grow them to make them more well-rounded, so that we might hire an electrical superintendent from one of our electrical trade partners, but how do we get them the sticks and bricks knowledge? So not only do they know the parts and smarts, but now they know the sticks and bricks, and now they are so much more well-rounded, and help us get those faster, more integral schedules for these turnover dates, because they may know, hey, you can prefab this, or hey, you might want to look out for that, or you need to have this up and operational by this date, or you're never going to hit this. Having those extra tools in your toolbox has been a game changer for us.
I totally see that. And to both of your points on that evolution of the team itself, hiring those technical experts, those subject matter experts, has grown significantly within the general contractor aspect. It used to be we would rely and trust the MEP trades, and it's not that we've lost any trust in them. We have gained an extra set of tools and or knowledge that we weren't usually, I want to say, privy to. It wasn't what our focus was. And as we have progressed, I feel like we have gotten more technical as a general contractor because of that. And I do think that expansive, use of tools is making us more versatile, at least in the mission critical industry, and more broadly within, J.E. Dunn specific advanced facilities group, because of the other technical work that's going on.
100%. As the famous Rusty Tuggle used to say, when he'd come on site, he'd say that we speak in alphabet soup, and with all the acronyms. And now that we have extra people that can walk the walk and talk the talk, it makes it easier. For those that are getting into the mission critical world, they don't have to know all the alphabet soup day one. They can learn it from these SMEs as they go.
Absolutely. Because the industry is so speed to market driven, and you're seeing that more and more, and tie that into the insatiable demand for capacity or power. Give me some examples of some hyper aggressive schedules you guys have managed, and using that expansive tool set that you talked about, Noah. What have you both seen, or each seen, that has been the most effective, or you're going to continue to use moving forward, that the audience may want to understand or hear about?
I think one of the biggest things that has made me successful with the hyperscalers and the very fast schedules is picking the right trade partners and actually partnering with them and coming into it with a solid game plan. It brings to mind, I call it my unicorn project. I did a project up in Portland, Oregon, where I can't speak highly enough of every single trade partner on that job. Everybody just came with great ideas, the amount of professionalism, the level of prefab that they came, the outside the box thinking, was just incredible on that job. We were able to shave weeks, if not months, off the schedule. I think one thing, I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but something that's just prevalent in the market is just OFCI delays. I think every single phase that we had a major OFCI delay, and through the lean process, poll planning, sitting down with those trade partners, the level of prefab, some of the out of the box thinking on the fly that we were able to overcome and still commission and finish all of those phases on time, which it was no small feat. But like I said, they showed up prepared. Our very first poll plan we did, which I don't know that I've ever had us poll plan out to a milestone date, and all of the trades talked with one another. It took very little facilitation, and we actually poll planned out on our first pass to the milestone date. So having those right partners for the project is crucial in these type of schedules.
I want to give Justin an opportunity to answer that too. But Noah, was that the same project that maybe even talking about the poll planning, where you guys had a unique delivery method for the units on the roof? Is that same project?
That is that same project.
You want to give a quick brief about what you guys did there? I say guys, what your team did there, and how you guys executed that well thought out plan.
So this is the feather in the cap, because Justin and I have had a long-standing bet on who could get a helicopter on their project the fastest, and I won. We had a client who had a tenant that did not want us blocking their main entrance for any sort of period of time. So they asked us to think outside the box. The only way to get the 23 picks to the roof was with utilizing a helicopter. So we had a Chinook helicopter. I think it was 4 months of planning, but we had this thing planned down to every 15-minute segment. But like I said, that was 4 months of planning. Great team effort from everybody. I think Columbia Helicopters said that was the most prepared project that they've ever had. They actually utilized our site logistics plan for their FAA permit for the project. So it was a huge success. Like I said, we did 23 picks in a little under 4 hours and 30 minutes on one of the hottest days in record in Portland, Oregon, with no incidences. So
which means it was really just 88 degrees because it's Portland, Oregon. Oh wait, that's not true.
That is an unreal story. It shows the level of expertise that most teams don't appreciate, or maybe appreciate's the wrong word. There is lack of visibility to what the superintendents and the site leadership do on projects, which is why I'm glad you both are here to share those stories on your ability to plan the work and work the plan, and follow through on it. So Justin, I would love to understand some of your methodologies on working through a hyper aggressive schedule and what you feel is the most effective too.
So the first thing that always comes to mind is there's always typically the data center clients are willing to spend more money to get their product, where maybe a more normal commercial company is more concerned about how much money spent, which they both are, but it kind of allows you to think about things in a different way. If Noah and I were having a conversation right before this about drill rigs for piers, right? And some projects you think, I'm going to buy out one drill rig. On a data center project, you might say, I need 4. Why not? Why can I not have 4? But what will that do? How much will 4 cost me, and how much schedule gain is there? So there's a little bit in the mission critical world where you're more willing to think about something that before you're locked in a box of the dollar value. Noah touched on the pool planning, which is, in my mind, it's just planning ahead. And this is any project that Jay Dunn's going to do, or any good project, is planning ahead. And that is just on a mission critical project because of the speed of it and how fast you have to make decisions. And if you don't make a decision or don't have an answer, you might get sideways. It's the planning to the detail that maybe you wouldn't see on other projects. There may be some stuff that you would leave up to mystery that on a mission critical project, you're going to plan to the nth degree and try to buy out so you can get the best trade partner. But not only are you going to try to get your best trade partner, you're going to get the trade partner that actually is going to do what you want them to do. I know that's not a very sexy answer, but it's something that even on any commercial project, if we did planning better, we'd end up doing better. And and that's what we find on a mission critical project. The people that do better on mission critical are the people that are willing to do the hard work ahead and do the planning. And really what they do is they know their scopes of work, they know their drawings, they know what their owner wants. And so when that change does occur, it's not a pull from the hip and shoot answer. It's a thought out answer because you've thought of A, B, and C, or you've looked at that and said, I have an option to go around this way.
I think a good example what Justin is referring to is like we never go into a commissioning meeting without having something in the on deck circle, because we all know during commissioning there's always going to be some piece of equipment that's going to have an issue. And I'm not dogging on commissioning agents, but a lot of times it's, what do we do now? This piece of equipment. So you always have something on that on deck circle. So it's a quick pivot, fix, go back.
I'll give you a real life scenario or question and see how you guys would approach that. But mission critical projects inherently have, you mentioned OFCI or owner furnished contractor installed equipment, and those have inherently have challenges, whether they are, delivery challenges or in some cases quality challenges. Let's say this scenario and the plan that you've got, Justin, that you have worked very well and hard with the team to get locked in, you find out it's going to be out 6 weeks. It's 6 weeks from delivery, and it was 2 weeks before it was supposed to be there is when you find out. How do you attack that issue to get the team back on track? Because, again, we're talking about very demanding clients that have expectations of delivery dates. But now we have a piece of equipment that's 6 weeks out.
Well, always the first thing is, and I'm gonna name drop Tom Arrington, right? I think something that Tom Arrington taught Noah and myself is if we don't like an answer to something, we need to go fix it, right? If we don't like something, it doesn't mean that we're stuck receiving that answer. And I mean, simple solution. If Blue Hat wasn't getting us something at Lenore, he said, why not call Perry and tell them you don't like that answer they gave you, right? That was a simple. So start off with the OFCI. If it's an OFCI or just any other piece of equipment, who's to say you can't call, say, Siemens and say, why is your equipment going to be late? And go up the food chain, right? That's really easy. Sometimes people don't even do that because they don't think it's going to work. And then sometimes it works. And then you jump over to the owner and say, hey, Mr. Owner, your equipment or this piece of equipment that you are always dealing with, do you have any pull with these people? Right? Those are the first two simplest things. But then there's always a turnover that you're driving for. So the next thing would be, all right, how do I work around this particular piece of equipment to get you a turnover? Is it really let's just say it's a piece of electrical gear at this point. Is it really the power you're needing to get this MDF or IDF or whatever? Or is it really, do you need a spot to put your racks? So if it's really, you just need a spot to put your racks and you want the power because you need cooling, well, I can go get you temporary cooling. I can get you a generator to power your racks in whatever manner. And then when the piece of equipment comes in, you can still go install those servers, do your thing, whatever it is that you're going to do. And we can cool it temporarily and we can give you power to install them. And by the time you actually get them ready and in place, we're going to have this piece of electrical gear. I guess that's an example. I'm not thinking of anything permanent yet, but we know we've done it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's ironic. I was listening to a Jaco podcast this morning that essentially said you have to accept it, but you don't have to accept it. You have to accept the situation, but it doesn't mean you have to accept what it's driving. You can always change the outcome. And to Justin's point, there's just because it's an OFCI delay, it doesn't mean that we can't, for instance, on a, say a chiller unit on the roof. Well, we're just not done with it yet. Okay, are you done enough to send it out, and then you guys can field install whatever missing parts you have out in the field to get us going. Now, a lot of times the answer is like, no, that'll avoid the warranty, but you got to ask the question first.
Good answers. You guys are on top of what maybe it's like you've got some of these questions already ahead of time. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to see if I can throw you off script here. All right. So here's a question I have for both of you. The construction industry has a camaraderie to it, has a, part of the get along gang. You're in a team atmosphere. We're all in. You're one team. That also trickles into the relationship you have with the teams you have, which if I'm trying to call it psychological to the point of thought here, that means you also have a lot of relationships and friends that you work with. Sometimes you end up having pranks with each other. I think there is, in the field side of it and traveling, you end up trying to humor yourself on what you've done. Are there any pranks you've ever, pulled on any, employees or personnel at J.E. Dunn that would just be great to hear about that people would be fun and on a camaraderie kind of standpoint? I got a couple on top of my head, but I just want to hear what you guys have heard.
I've got one, but I can't break my the bet going on here, so I can't share mine.
I cannot think of anyone currently that
Really, Justin, the Lenore one with Husey Poo and Corn Dog.
Well, that's the one I was thinking of. I was going to say that I personally did, but that one at Lenore was a pretty good one where they had the bottle of
Do it.
fake poo smell, and was getting sprayed in a room constantly and causing people to just lose their minds, right? To tear up walls and look above the ceiling, and all it was is somebody spraying it, right? Yeah, I mean, there's always something stupid that we've done, right?
I don't know what it is about that spray, but that one still comes up today in terms of people still pull that prank. The one I'm kind of referring to, this may be directed towards Noah and another gentleman who just entered the room, Mr. Fernholz. I'm thinking more of something about when he was trying to go through security.
Oh,
and
so if anybody knows Mike Fernholz loves commissioning. The guy lives and breathes commissioning, and sometimes at the failure of making his flight on time. So I may or may not have at one point in Santa Clara reminded Mike numerous times that he had a flight upcoming, and Mike was so in love with commissioning he just couldn't peel himself away. So Mike stepped out to make a phone call. So it got to the point where I was so afraid Mike was going to miss his flight. I called Mike a cab. This is the days before Uber for all of those of you that don't remember those days. But then I started packing his stuff up, and with all the commissioning agents sitting in a room, they all started chuckling as I started loading Mike's stuff into his bag. I threw a bottle of water in there for fun, and then proceeded to take low voltage zip ties and zip tie every zipper to Mike's bag closed. And as they all watched me do this, and I put Mike in a cab, they all laughed and said, when he calls you back, you have to put that on speakerphone. I said, absolutely. And about 7 minutes later, because San Jose Airport's not very far from the job, Mike called me and was like, dude, my bag.
That was the one I was referring to. That one still is pretty epic to me. Of he had no idea it was coming, and then you walked right into it. So
but
appreciate you humoring
all the commissioning agents got a good laugh over Mike.
Yeah,
I am a believer that if you're not having fun, you'll go insane. So those are reasons, especially in this industry, why we kind of bring that up. You talked about Noah, how Mike is really diving into the commissioning side of it, and he's just super focused. And you were leading the charge to get his bag packed to get out of there, and still communicating with the team. And it just kind of goes as the lead of the projects. These are the superintendents. It's your project. Everybody else is just there to kind of follow lead here. And that means you're the hub of communication on every project. What kind of style do you guys have, or do you recommend in the industry as a superintendent going into a project that they may not know, how you can unify a team, internal as well as external, to make these successful? Because I think that is such a key to seeing a project through.
I mean, not to be cheesy because everybody says it, but leading by example, getting down in the trenches. The one story that comes to mind that kind of just really cements and unifies the team. When we were up in Portland, Oregon, we're getting ready for generator commissioning. The generator commissioning crew that was scheduled to come out there, they were flying in, and the actual generator guys were saying that they needed, there's only 2 of them, and it was going to take them 2 to 3 days to run that many Camlock load bank cables that distance and get them hooked up to not only the load bank, but the generators. And it's like, hey, so sorry, but you got to get this done today. Those guys are on a plane. There's no way possible, blah, blah, blah. I went out there and started shucking load bank cables. And if anybody's picked up those big old SO cords, they're about 50 pounds a section, grabbing 2 at a time and starting slinging them. Next thing you know, one of my superintendent walks by, goes, what are you doing? I was like, Albert, we got a schedule to hit, and these guys are saying they don't have enough manpower. Albert grabbed a couple. Next thing you know, Maddie walks by, asks the same question. She's slinging them. Begrudgingly, next thing you know, Ted Beardman's walking by, and little Grumpus, and he starts slinging them. So before the end of the day, we had all of them not only strung out, we had them organized, and all those guys literally had to do was walk up and make up the cam connection. So leading by example is a big thing on there. And not only that, but the generator guys saw that, our electricians saw that. They knew that we were partners with them. They knew that we all had the common mission and that we're there to win. So I think having that expectation, leading by example, it's a huge thing, and a good culture for a team.
Justin, you have any?
Yeah, I would say be willing to explain the why of what you're doing, whether it's a trade partner, the owner, a PE, your PX, whatever. You have to be willing to explain that and then be available to explain it. So if you have a plan and you want people to follow your plan, you better show them the plan. And not everybody communicates verbally. Some people have to see pretty pictures. Some people are only going to look at P6. Some people only will talk to you on the phone, and some will only do it via email, right? And if you think that everybody's going to fit to what you want, that's wrong. You have to figure out how to communicate with those people and explain to everyone. So I think that's being willing to explain what you want and why you want it, because everybody's willing to jump on board if you tell them the why. Typically, there's always people that just, I'm out here, I don't know why I'm here. Well, let me tell you why you're here, right? And I think that's the best way. You can yell at people after you've explained the plan and they don't follow the plan and they refuse to do the plan. But really, it's more about explaining the plan and then being honest with people. So if you're dealing with a trade partner that doesn't have enough people or not following the plan, then tell them they're not following the plan and ask them why, right? That's being hard. Or if you're dealing with, you've got a deadline coming up and you see that nobody's working towards that deadline, well, you better communicate that. Nobody's just going to get to it by osmosis. And slowly people realize if you're willing to actually tell them why, they're part of the team, right? They feel part of the team, whether or not maybe you might have been critical with them, but at least they know that you're being honest. I know that's kind of a little bit of a long-winded answer, but nobody's going to just learn it by reading an email. So you have to be willing to take the time to go do that. So majority of a superintendent's job is being willing to take time out of your day to go answer their questions and answer that trade partner's questions and go do that. And whatever you think is important to you, if it's some emails or some task, that's got to be put to the side. And your foremost thing are those others. Those others is what you have to deal with, right? You have to put them first, and then you got to go sit in your corner and read your emails later. So if you're doing your emails first and expecting that they're going to come back to you later and then want to do what you want them to do, that's not going to happen.
I think one thing Justin skimmed over, but one important attribute to what he just said, that is a tool that everybody should continue to sharpen, is that emotional intelligence. The way he talked on not only explaining the why, but knowing how to explain the why to different personalities. I think every trade partner is coming from somewhere different. Every region of the country we go through, you got different personalities, people, cultures, and I think having that emotional intelligence to not only explain the why, but knowing how to explain the why to different personalities is a huge tool that everybody should continue to sharpen.
Oh, absolutely, Noah. Tune into the next episode to hear part 2 of our 2-part superintendent series.